Hey everyone, welcome to the Heralds of Awesome, and today I'm bringing you another Omnibus review. This time it is of one of my favorite volumes in my collection, the second volume of the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby Fantastic Four Omnibus run. I'm just going to preface this by saying that most of the modern Marvel Universe was established during this during the Fantastic Four run in general, but mainly in this volume. So if you consider yourself a hardcore Marvel fan, or just you want to learn more about the early days of the Marvel Universe, definitely pick this up. I can't stress that enough. Some of the most important stories and characters came out of just these 30 plus issues that are in this volume right here. So as you can see, this is an extremely badass cover by Jack Kirby. It's part of the Galactus trilogy. That introduced one of my favorite characters of all time, Silver Surfer, who you can see floating around right there. Let's just get right into it. So the cover right here, it's kind of the light isn't shining off of it, but it is a little glossy. So if you're holding it under light, it's going to have some glare. This is a pretty standard Marvel Omnibus. Most of the Silver Age collections look pretty much just like this, with the black spine and just this generic Marvel Omnibus font right here. As you can see right there, there's the Marvel Omnibus banner, Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Volume 2. I don't have the first Omnibus on me because when I bought it, it's still in storage, but when I bought it, it was extremely used, and the spine is a bit damaged, but I have those first 30 issues collected in Masterworks and also the Epic Collections, which those are very convenient. Out of the 3 Omnibus volumes of the Jack and Stan run they released, this is definitely the strongest, and the people who own the volume are they know what I'm talking about. Okay, so just like a lot of the general Marvel Omnibus volumes, there's just this black matte cover, black spine, same situation as the jacket. There's no engraving, it's just a smooth cover. So inside they have this shiny grayish black cover. I don't know what material that I can compare that to, but that doesn't matter. Alright, some imagery of the 4. This is just the creator page. It tells you the letters, inkers, it shows Stan and Jack right there, and it shows you which issues are being collected. And just in case you're curious, Volume 2 of the Stan and Jack Fantastic Four Omnibus run collects issues 31 through 60, along with annuals 2 through 4. Back then, the annual issues weren't optional like they are today. They did leave some kind of influence on the main story. And then again, the annuals back then were actually more interesting than they are now. People don't really pay attention to those. So here's your table of contents. This book goes about... It runs for about 800, 900 plus pages. There are a lot of extras in the back. So every 10 or so issues, Stan does a little introduction. These were also collected in those Masterworks formats. Then we get right into it, starting with the story of my favorite supervillain of all time, Dr. Doom. This pretty much elaborated on his background of how he was a gypsy. Eventually, he went to New York, met Reed Richards, the accident happened, and then he became Dr. Doom. This origin's been elaborated in a lot of stories. Roger Stern and Mike Mignola did a story called Doctor Strange, Dr. Doom, Triumph and Torment. Pretty much just goes over his origin and his connection with his mother. Jason Aaron did a run called Books of Doom, which really elaborates on his origin. I highly recommend that series if you can find it. The trade paperback's out of print, but if you can find it in single issues, yet again, I highly recommend it. Every annual for these Silver Age books always has a little showcase, a little gallery of the villains. The Fantastic Four villains are always really interesting. There's some portraits of the 4 main characters, and then there's a backup story. Again with Doctor Doom. So, for those who don't know much about Jack Kirby, those that have heard that Jack Kirby is the king of comics, he's one of the best in the business, or the best that's ever been, this is when his art really starts to ramp up. If you bought the first 30 issues in the Omnibus or Masterworks formats and you think, wow, this guy is not as great as I was expecting, well, you wouldn't be wrong, because his early issues were very rough, but if you pay attention in this volume, he's experimenting with every issue. He's trying new artistic styles, and about 100 pages into this, you're going to notice that, wow, he's really starting to come into his own. He has his own style. You see bolder lines, like you can see right here. His art gets gradually better. I'll show you in a minute. But yeah, pretty much everyone that you want to see show up in a Fantastic Four story appears in here. You have an appearance by Daredevil, who is one of my favorite characters. Black Panther has his first appearance in this. Silver Surfer, Galactus they also show up. The Frightful Four show up a big chunk, and also the Inhumans. This is the volume that introduces them. There's Gorgon. The Inhumans, there they are. That's their first appearance. I'm just going to skip around really quickly. But as you can see, his art's gradually getting better. Here's the Galactus story. This would have been their big event, although it only happened in the Fantastic Four title. It's 3 issues, but the entire Galactus story happens in about 2.5. They moved really quickly back then. So 2 issues, and then about 10 pages of the 3rd issue, and then they move on to another story. I think it's Johnny Storm going to college. It also collects one of the most popular Fantastic Four stories, This Man, This Monster. It's a very emotional story. It was everything that I expected it to be. I highly recommend... I just highly recommend this volume in general. I know I've said that too many times so far, but this is a necessary addition to any fan's collection. First appearance of Black Panther. He becomes a big part, even when he has little cameos. Even when he's not a main part of the story, he usually helps out in some way. Silver Surfer gets a good chunk of these issues. In this volume and the last volume, they really start developing him as his own character. The last couple of issues is a 3 or 4 issue arc about Doctor Doom stealing Silver Surfer's powers in a surfboard, and he becomes somewhat godlike, which is really interesting for a character like Doom, because he's probably been a god about 10 times by now. So by the end of this volume, Jack Kirby's art is just... It is unbelievably... It pops right off the page. It continues to get better, even as they go into the 3rd volume and those later issues of their 102 plus issues run. Even as the stories start getting a little bit weaker, his art just gets stronger, because after this he goes to DC and does his 4th World stories. Also, in this volume, the original letter pages are collected. Sorry about that. You're going to find some names from future comics creators. I forget some of the names that are included, but if you flip through here, you'll find someone that you recognize. So, there are about 800 plus pages of story, and then about 20-30 pages of extras, just some essays and some background art and advertisements. Overall, I highly recommend this volume. If that's the only thing that you take away from this video, then I think I've done my job. this has some of the best stories in Marvel history, some of the most important ones. The Fantastic Four is very underrated with the general population, but those who really know what they're about know that they're a very interesting, it's a very interesting series of comics. I'm going to do the 3rd volume eventually, and also I'll be doing the Jonathan Hickman Fantastic Four Omnibus. But for right now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to leave some suggestions, go ahead and leave some in the comments. I'll be happy to review anything. If you want to find the channel online, you can find it on Twitter at Awesome Heralds. And thanks for watching.